You're listening to the Lindsey Way Podcast for all things hunting with Jeff and David Lindsey. All right, guys, welcome to episode 2 of the Lindsey Way Podcast. I am Jeff Lindsey.
And I'm David Lindsey.
And we are the Lindsey Way. At least today we are.
Yeah.
Some days, I don't know what we are. But today we're the Lindsey Way. And we're going to talk a little bit about our season. You know, here we are. This is the middle of January. We're getting ready to go to the SHOT Show of all places, Vegas. So there's going to be more rednecks and hunters and yada, yada, yada invading Sin City than they've seen probably since this time last year. So it's a town that is cool, but once you've seen it a couple times, just kind of over it, really.
Yeah, I kind of like going.
It's fun, yeah. Actually, the girls love going.
Yeah, and you just don't have enough time to do everything.
There's so much to do. Yeah, we never even leave the city. We hardly leave the show.
No, hardly ever leave the hotel when we're in the same hotel as it is.
And this year we're staying somewhere different, so we'll have to get an Uber or walk. And that's probably not a bad idea. Get some fresh air because that smoke wears me out.
It does me too.
Dries me out. Yeah. I'm like just lotion, coconut oil, whatever you want to call it, putting it all over me. And that climate's dry. You know, it's like being on an elk hunt for 2 weeks, all on your skin comprised to one day. But that's Vegas. If you've never been, I highly recommend it. But it's one of those where you can do just about anything in the world you want to do in Vegas.
Yeah, if we would pick up gambling a little more, we might enjoy it some more. But other than that, you know, with our lifestyle, it's just not a place we spend a lot of time.
Yeah, like I tell everybody, when you pass somebody and you see them at the blackjack table, you know this place. You help keep their lights on. They didn't get all big, fancy, in a multi-million or billion-dollar hotel resort because they're giving it back to people. That's for sure.
Exactly right.
But after that, we're going to try to go to Mississippi for a couple of days if the weather cooperates. I've already been to Mississippi once. We killed a couple deer there. I shot a deer there. Kyle shot a deer. Shot some does. But I just kind of want to go through our season, and talk a little bit about, in a nutshell, because as everything plays out on screen, 13 episodes, 12, 13 episodes, whatever we decide to do this year, 22, 23 minutes apiece, that's going to have all the kills in them. I think we killed 22 animals, or 22 bull elk, or 22 deer and elk. Now, if you count does, we're probably going to be in the triple digits. But deer and elk with antlers. That's what we're talking about when we say 22. But it was a fun year. I don't want to say it was our best year ever, but man, it kind of, you look back and you feel pretty good about it. But there's always room for improvement. I have some states that I was like extremely happy with things, how they worked out, and in other states I don't want to say I shot a deer or something I wasn't happy with, but maybe there was one out there that I wanted to get a little more than the one I got. But and you're always going to have that, but we're always happy to get what we get. Our freezers are literally full, and it's the end of the year, and it's a good time to reflect. And I just wish they would move these shows back. They both hit in January, and there's seasons that are still open. You got Ohio, Arkansas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, all these places that are still open for deer, much less waterfowl.
Yeah, it's about like you don't really get time to breathe. You just. Hunting season's over with in Iowa, and then shows start the 8th. Hunting season's over with the 10th, so we're already behind.
And it used to be worse. We had that rifle season for 10 days after, January 11th, after the muzzleloader season, and we were under the gun. Truly kind of put pressure on ourselves to kill 80 or 100 does a year, and that was a slaughter fest, but our deer numbers were so out of whack. And then EHD comes, hits twice in 10 years, and the number of does that we had to shoot went down drastically. And this year, you had intentions of shooting a bunch on the farm, but what did we end up with, 40?
Yeah, but we ran out of time.
And cold weather.
And taking that right, that's exactly right. That cold weather moved out, and the warm weather moved in. The deer quit moving, basically. So we were going and sitting, killing 1 or 2 does a piece in the afternoons, and that you don't get it done that way.
I still had an archery tag, which they were allowing you to take a crossbow in the late muzzleloader season. I was taking that a lot, which I'd never done. But it was pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie. And I was shooting does with that, but I wasn't holding out for a buck. Kind of like what you weren't doing with the muzzleloader. You kind of started blasting them once you put all the pieces of your puzzle together on the season. But we started out. Where did we start out? Elk hunting, Montana? No, Georgia.
No, we started out
Georgia.
Georgia.
Early season Georgia.
Yeah.
We always, opening week of Georgia, we have missed, but it's kind of one of those things that you don't really want to miss because it's so much fun. The deer are, they're feeding pretty good. They're still kind of on their summer patterns.
And we got that farm there that we pay for all year, that we maintain all year. We might as well take advantage of it as soon as we can.
We feed them all year, and it was a year that it was the first year in Georgia that you could legally bait. And even though we don't really hunt over bait, we were able to keep it out and felt like, we knew our neighbors were going to do it. So we kept it out, kept feeding our protein, our big time protein plus pretty much all the way through September till they came up until the rifle season. Then we fed them, probably till Thanksgiving, I guess you'd say. And our first day, opening day, I don't know that I've ever killed a buck on opening day of Georgia, but I shot that buck. What was his name? What was that deer's name?
That was
in Georgia. That was opening day.
September.
Yeah, September. About 10 years ago, or 6 or 8 years ago, I guess, they moved Georgia up a week. It used to be 2 weeks after dove season. And opening day of dove season, even though we don't film it or make a show out of it, that is spiritual to us. We have a lot of people come to our farm, and we hunt that, and it kicks it off. We barbecue, do something different every year. A lot of our family's involved. A lot of our extended family and our friends are involved, and we get 20, 30, 40 people out there, and it's a blast. Yeah. And I always say it's downhill from there. And then the next week, it used to open deer season 2 weeks after that.
That's right.
Now it opens 1 week after it, and we have missed a couple of days of deer season, on an elk hunt a couple of times, I think. So we have missed it once or twice. But this year, I killed that buck. He was in full velvet. I've killed 2 mule deer in velvet, but that was my first whitetail. Have you ever shot a whitetail in velvet?
No.
Don't think so. We really don't hunt places where you can. We don't hunt Kentucky. We've hunted North Dakota. We had some opportunities there, but most of them were on deer that shed velvet.
Now, I've got 2 mule deer in velvet, no whitetails.
And 2 big ones. 2 really big mule deer. I got 2 mule deer too, but not as big as his. Imagine that. But that it started from there. And then we shot some does that week. You shot some doe, I think a doe or 2. I shot some. It was a good week, but we didn't have those deer were coming. I shot my deer on persimmons, but we didn't have our sawtooth acorns falling. And I was just talking to Dudley over at Mossy Oak Native Nurseries 2 days ago, and it's about time for us to start planting them. But I don't think people understand the drawing power of sawtooth oaks in the South. It's huge. It's better than a fresh cut bean field, fresh cut corn field. It's better than any pile of anything you can pile up to bait them with. I don't know what sawtooth oaks taste to like them, but I'm guessing it's like a mother load of Little Debbie snacks. Yeah, if I had to guess. That's just the way my only analogy I can think of. And they will walk past anything to get to it. But we had a late frost, and that's 2 years on our Georgia farm out of the last 4 or 5 that we have lost all of our sawtooth acorns. But they stay on our alfalfa longer and our clover plus and all that. So there's other ways to hunt them, but it's definitely not, you don't have that drawing power of the crack cocaine, sawtooth oaks, crack cocaine of the deer woods. But so that's where we started off. Then we went to Montana. No, we went to Colorado. And you didn't end up shooting a bull. I ended up shooting that old 5x5, our buddy Gary and Jacqueline. That was kind of the highlight of that trip. She shot on the first day or second day?
I think it's second day.
She shot a giant, he would have been he's probably been closer to 350, but he had a short 5 on one side, but a 330s type bull, smoked it, and, her first or second day, and she's like, oh man, this is easy. We're like, hold on, it's not. Luckily in Colorado where we can hunt, you can use a gun. But I hunted for 4 days with my bow, ended up shooting that old 5x5 that I tried to get you to shoot that morning, and you wouldn't. But since I'd seen him all week, I said, if it comes down to the last day, and he's still there, Rim, I will shoot him for you. Me or my dad one will, because he's one of those. Rim says oldest bull he's ever encountered.
Wow.
And then his teeth was wore down, and when we killed him, that kind of confirmed that. But he looked like that. He ended up breaking off a couple of points while we were there, but already got his European skull back, and he's beautiful. He's an awesome bull, but we were a little ahead of the rut. That was our story. But it wasn't. I don't remember it being cold. But 10 days later, we went to Montana, and it's snowing in September. And then they say we're a little too late. So somehow we missed the peak of the rut. My life story. But we didn't kill a bull in Montana. It was archery, and we encountered some absolute giant bulls in southeast Montana. Took us 3 years to draw. We went with Trophies West, great people, but we didn't bring nothing home. But I had the 2 best elk hunts of my life the last 2 afternoons. You had probably 2 of your best ones the first part of the week. But the last 2 afternoons, it was amazing. I came so close. I was in the middle of these huge herds with giant bulls, and both times a cow see me draw and busted them, but it was a blast. It was a blast. And from there, it was opening week of Iowa, and I think, we both know what happened mid-October when you shot the second biggest deer of your life.
Yeah. You know how, like, you get that cold front that first week of October, and, I mean, that's about good as it gets right there, because you got your deer still on your summer patterns pretty much, and you know where they're at for the most part. And
we missed it a little bit this year.
Yeah, we did a little bit.
Because of 2 elk hunts. And I have come to the realization that I love elk hunting more than you. And next year, you probably going to stay a little closer to home, you said.
Yep. Next year, I'd like to hit that first cold front if I could. I love that early October hunting, chasing big whitetails. There's no doubt about it.
And you shot T-Rex. You're pretty much your number 1 hitless buck. Not the first afternoon you went after him, but it was the right wind, the right weather. You moved to stand, at night or something?
No, we hunted him for a few days. We were really looking for him to show up on camera more. And I had a Spartan camera sitting in that gap, and we would get a picture of him periodically.
While we were elk hunting, we got a picture of him in daylight.
And so I got a stand on a point right there, and I went over and got in the stand, even though I hadn't got any other pictures of him recently. And we seen him come out, I think about the second or third afternoon we hunted it, come out in the corner of the field, and where the deer always come out and work through the pinch point where I'm sitting, they turn and go back into the woods behind me. So by gaining that knowledge right there and watching him do that, we went in there the next morning and hung a stand where he walked through. That afternoon, about 2 hours after we hung it, we hopped up in it. And sure enough, I mean, he came out right in that corner where he did the night before, and we killed him. And there was a few things that played in our favor. We were very quiet going in. We had the wind right. We just literally sprayed totally down with nose jammer before we went and hung those sets. And the wind was really right. It was blowing in a little ditch there. So those 2 factors right there is the reason we killed that deer.
Right, yeah, and I will do a disclaimer. We are not sponsored by Nose Jammer. I kind of wish we were because we use so much of it, but that stuff just flat out works. It's a great product. But nonetheless, spray down with
that. We are working on that sponsor.
Yeah, we could just get a bunch of it, It smells like a donut shop. I think that's why you like it. I think he knows that's why you like it, because the way it smells.
I know. If he knew how much of it I used, he would send us all we wanted.
I'll just back the truck up, brother. We're going to take a bath in that stuff.
It works everywhere, too. I mean, it really does.
Anywhere there's plants.
And elk hunting, we used it down in Georgia. When you get in that summer down there or that early fall and that wind does not blow, and you're just sitting there, there's no breeze, there's no nothing, your scent just goes everywhere. That nose jammer makes a difference.
And there's so many products like that out there. And the first time that it came, my buddy told me about it, I was like, I know. It was Greg. Greg Lessinger said something. I said, man, it's snake oil or anything else. So how do you decipher of all these products which one is, really works? And so he tried it. You used it on Dougie. You killed Dougie with it, and you have absolutely swore by it ever since.
Yep,
more so than anybody I know. But you killed that deer. I didn't mean to get off on that, but you killed him that first afternoon when you moved the stand.
We went in there and hung a set down where he had went in the night before. Sure enough, about an hour before dark, or before shooting light, he comes into that field and turns and walks right up under us. And I'm saying literally, you can see him walk under my tree. He looked up. He knew something went right. He took off running about 15, 20 yards and stopped. And then when he stopped, then I was able to get arrow in him.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't go too far.
Right. And I know that's your saying, just get an arrow in him. But you made a dang good shot on that deer. He didn't go, 150 yards. We gave him a little time because it angled in. We thought he got the lungs.
So good, man. And then when he jumped that fence, I got a little nervous. I'm not going to lie.
Well, anytime they jump a fence or go uphill after you shoot them, when you're tracking them, you're going to get a little nervous. But he was dead deer running.
Yeah, he was.
And
we gave him a couple hours. Went back in there.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't give him long. And he come out the golden hour. Cal did a great job laying the footage down. He's in that Clover Plus field. And that field, you changed it up there for a while. But I think and I know we've always me and you've kind of went back and forth on this, but I think you have your best sits in that field, or you kill your biggest deer when it's in clover.
You know, deer love clover early season. They really do, man. I mean, you put all this stuff in the radishes and turnips, and it's that good.
And it's year-round nutrition, yeah.
That clover, it just has such a drawing power. It's just hard to describe. You know, if you maintain it and fertilize it and keep pH right on it, then you got a food plot all year.
Yeah, and when people ask me, and I run an Instagram and Facebook account, so and I get some help from time to time, so some people respond. But if somebody asks me what to plant, first thing I ask them was, when do you want to hunt it? And that'll determine it. But if it's just, hey, whenever, I'm saying clover. And then, we plant two different types of clover, non-typical clover and Clover Plus, both by Biologic. And each one has kind of their own pros and cons, but it's year-round nutrition. And I think what makes that spot you hunt, which you call the 141 set, and you literally got stands around it for every wind, but it's kind of an interior field with one exit to go to a big destination field.
Yeah, and I think over the last few years, we have ruined that gap. I don't think a buck likes to be pinched real tight. We went in there and we started using
the scrape trees,
just
putting up the fence post and
putting things up that would narrow that even down more and more. These deer have learned to go through the woods behind me now, so I've got to go in here and figure out how to get these deer back on that pattern coming through that gap, because it's always so much fun watching them come through that. And
that is your favorite stand of the year. I've only said it one time ever when you let me.
But I will say this too: when we're talking about clover, any kind of clover, I think the deer eat the clover all year. And if I've got a buck that I'm really going to try to kill early season, I'm going to plant some Biologic deer radishes. I mean, that is going to be my number one go-to spot. I might have some clover next to it, but that's just me.
You want to kill him early, yeah. Season. But on that clover, those deer are there year-round, eating that clover. They even ate it. We shot a buck in January over clover. So that's year-round nutrition, and I think the year-round nutrition is almost like, I would equate it to having a feeder out year-round in Kansas. Those deer learn to come there about every day. It's just become second nature. That's where they go eat lunch or dinner or whatever you want to call it. But that's what they do. So you shot that deer. Remember, we went in there and found it. And that deer was your second biggest bow deer. Is that right? What did he score?
187 and something.
Yeah, it wasn't chipped. It wasn't nothing. Beautiful early season Cape. But he was, in Iowa here, we have two sizes of deer. And I'm sure there's a scientific name for that the people over at QDMA could tell us. But so we have the bigger body deer that can, get up to 270, 280, even higher, just huge brutes of deer. Then you got these bucks like this deer and Dynamite was that, 220, 240. Yeah. I don't want to say 220, but 230, 240. They're sub 250. And they're smaller bodies and they're little redder coats, but some of the biggest deer are the smaller body ones. But you got this two different strain of whitetail, which obviously they mix or whatever.
All their protein goes to their head.
It does, and those are the ones that usually grow all those points. It's crazy. Baby G wasn't like that. He was a bigger body and huge rack, but and he was 6.5, if I remember correctly. And then that is something you've always done well at, is shooting deer early. I have not. My biggest deer ever came on October 7th or October 8th with a bow, but I'm not that deadly early season. I get caught up in whatever, and that was when I got caught up and kind of fell in love with Tricky Ricky. I said he was a daylighting on me. He was an 8.5-year-old deer and 6x6 with a really good drop time, and I just fell in love with him, and I started hunting him, and we didn't even have a name for him that early, but he was always tricking me. No matter where I was, he'd be on a different camera in daylight, and Tricky Ricky stuck, and he kicked my butt all year up until December 30th.
Yeah, and some of those deer do that.
The power
too,
belt bullet caught up with him.
When you pick up one like that right there that you really want to hunt and you give it your all,
yeah,
then you don't know, if you're gonna kill him this week or next month. So,
but you've always done that. You like picking up one deer and sticking with him. I love it, but I hate it because when you kill him, it's the best feeling in the world. Like there's probably no better feeling I ever had than killing Ash Tay. It was the first buck I killed that year, and it took all the way to November 15th. But I killed him, and it was the best feeling in the world. But when you don't kill him, you feel like you almost wasted a year after one buck. You know,
like Sky High. I mean, look, you hunted him for 2 years.
You did. Yeah, Sky High. Yeah, I'm thinking of another deer. Yes.
Sky High.
Yeah, the year before.
And you hunt all that, and you do that, and then he just disappeared. I mean, for a deer to disappear on you like that right there, if you got 2 years in him, it's just so frustrating. And you just have to remember to chase. I mean, that's what that fun is in the chase. It really is.
Yeah, that's a pattern that we keep bringing up. These deer kicking my butt, but Sky High kicked my butt. He was a 109-inch. He was probably a 175-inch typical deer with probably 20 inches of non-typical. And
you always seem like you pick the toughest deer to hunt.
I picked the nocturnal ones. Yeah.
Sky High, he lived in the timber.
Yeah.
And when you got 400 acres of timber and he moved around as much as he does, it's hard. It's going to be hard to. Yeah. You're going to have to be extremely lucky and all the.
He had a huge home range.
Yeah. He really did, man.
Big home range, and don't pick the deer that. If you're going to pick one deer to hunt all year, don't pick one that's got a big home range. And I do that.
Yeah, and sometimes you really don't know.
To a fault, yeah.
Till you start trying to hunt him, and then you get pictures of him here and there. It really gets on our radar, and you really go after him.
Well, he was 7.5 when I decided to kill him, and Tricky Ricky was 8.5. And that's one thing about me is, I just want to kill them when they're at their peak. I want to kill them at 7 or 8 years old, and it's almost impossible to get a deer that age. And we'll have a couple on the farm every year, but when we do, that's the ones I like to hunt. And they're smart then. They do move a lot. Some of them Sky High didn't, but Tricky Ricky moved a lot. It just took me forever to catch up with him.
He just had too many places to go.
Yeah.
Too many ditches right there, honestly.
But I remember after you killed that deer, number 2, I would say, hit list on the farm, or the second biggest buck on the farm. Well, you can't score them all on the hoof, but what we guessed was Samson. And this was a deer that we think was 7 or 8. And I don't want to say he was on our farm because he was on a farm kind of down the road, but kind of a similar type connection to our farm. And he was like, and you said, well, you better go over there and kill him. At this point, I'm like, I done fell in love with Tricky Ricky. And Samson is huge, but, I didn't know. I didn't know if he was going to have luck. He lived in a spot that's very tough hunting.
Yeah, and I really didn't. It's almost like I got to have a bone to pick with a deer to go after him.
And you didn't have one.
And
you
really
said
didn't
that.
have one because after that, I did not really go after him. There was a couple other deer around. I just hunted around a little. I had one more tag. I honestly didn't want to tag out too early that I didn't sit in the house in November.
No, yeah, because you probably ain't going anywhere else, unlike me.
I love that 1st of November, and I want to be in a tree stand in Iowa if possible.
Nobody can fault you for that. But so after that, you started. You didn't. I don't know. You started hunting Samson, but you started putting the pieces together with him. You moved some cameras in on him. We went to Illinois. We have an annual hunt where we get a couple buddies to come to the Illinois farm, and I killed a deer, an old, like a 6.5-year-old, 8-point, not much of a rack, but an old deer on like the last morning after you had done left and went back to Iowa. And that was a fun hunt. It's a fun time of year. The leaves are changing. And in my opinion, if there's a prettier place when the leaves are changing than Pike County, Illinois, on the bluffs right there on the river, I haven't been there. I've heard people say, you got to go to Buffalo County, Wisconsin, or Vermont, whatever. But when you got big deer like Pike County, Illinois does, and the leaves are changing, for one good thing is that the whole family wants to come. They want to be there when
the deer move.
The deer move, man. In Pike County, those deer move, and they move. And we killed that buck, and you had a great encounter with a big 10, mid-50s 10-pointer. That spoiler alert, you end up shooting right under him, but you killed him first morning of gun season.
Yeah. I hunted him both seasons, and when I went back, it was kind of bittersweet. He came out the first morning within 10 minutes shooting light.
And you killed a lot of big deer this year, but you said that was probably your favorite deer of the year, just because you shot right under him, may have grazed him. I don't know 100% sure what happened, but you felt like you wounded him, and then to finish that story and him not die and get eaten by coyotes, it's pretty cool. And his face was almost like this gray, light gray color, with tons of scars. Just a very unique deer. And we left there. Where did we go? We went back to Iowa, hunted a little bit, no success. And then you always go to Georgia for Halloween to spend the time with Jacqueline's kids, and they get dressed up, do the whole Halloween thing, shebang. Can't blame them. They kill.
And I took both of them hunting. Both of them was successful. Both killed a buck.
Yeah.
And then I felt like my season was completed with them.
I didn't even count. I haven't even been counting those deer on
really?
all the ones when we tell
awesome.
about how many we killed.
So yeah,
forgot about that.
Both the Jacquelines, Elizabeth 10 and Jackson 8, they both had
killed bucks too, wasn't it?
deer.
Yeah.
Yep. That was awesome. That was some of my highlights of the year for sure.
Yeah, and then we're back in Iowa. It's the rut. I'm still chasing Tricky Ricky, getting my butt kicked on the daily. He's either showing up in camera or we're seeing him. But you start moving in on Samson. And that's when you really started telling me, hey, come over here, let's hunt that deer. And I said, let me kill Tricky Ricky first, like it was going to be easy. And then I'm going to come over there and hunt with you. And then you start moving cameras in. You start moving some Spartans around, really starting to locate what exactly Samson's doing. And he's pretty visible. I never can remember, and I'm thinking back in my mind's eye, I never remember him this much on trail cam in daylight. And then I'll just kind of let you take it from there.
Yeah, well, we just kind of, when we moved over and started hunting him, he'd always summered in this one ditch over there by a pond where we had fed him a lot and had our cameras out.
Yeah, he lived at the big time.
We lost track of him.
Yeah.
We lost track of him. We wasn't getting no pictures of him. He wasn't going through the gap. So as soon as we go over and start hunting him, we move one ditch over, put out some cameras in some gaps, and first night, I think it was, we got a picture of him. So we move in over there, set up a couple of redneck soft sides on a couple of areas that we had already planned when we put our food plots in there that we would use to strategize.
One was a cornfield with a pinch, wasn't it?
Yep, we had a cornfield right there and had a pinch with it. And then we had we had some green plot, alfalfa, and we just had everything set up so that we could kill him in the other ditch, but we didn't this one. So we had to get creative on what we did and where we put our stands, because we knew we had a lot of north and west winds, and the food plot was set up so that it was for south. So we'd moved the stand over to a side, and a few nights later, we saw him. He was walking up the ditch. Same ditch we got a picture of, went on the gap. So we knew he was moving, but it was right at dark, right at shooting light, and we were trying to make sure we didn't spook him. Above all else, getting in, getting out, and waiting. At that night we saw him, we waited for a long time for him to get out before we walked out.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So then we go in there. We've hunted him 4 or 5 days. We slip in there one morning, and a couple of does were right there in the road we was walking in on. They bust down and run into a ditch. And normally we're hunting, with us facing south, and with him, using that whole area. They still hadn't cut none of that corn. It was too wet. All the corn was still standing. That made
a ton
of
corn, that year.
Tough for us. But at the same time, it kind of helped create some funnels, to keep the deer on. So basically, what happened was we bump him 2 does. They run into that ditch. This particular morning, with them soft sides, I told Kyle, I'm going to unzip this back door.
November the 5th.
Yep, November the 5th. I unzipped the back door that morning. I got the little screen slid up on it. We're hunting, sitting here. Something happened. I looked out behind me, and there was the 2 does. And there he was walking up that ditch right there, probably 35 yards.
First time we had ever seen this deer, ever. With our eyes, right?
Well, now I think I had seen him the year before when I took your mom over there to that ditch hunting.
Yeah.
We didn't get no footage of him or nothing like that, so I couldn't say 100% sure that was him. But he was a big old 9.
With a couple kickers on his base.
Yep.
We thought he's 170s.
Yep, and that was the year
Last
before.
year.
Yep.
And this year we just thought he was big. Huge, typical.
Real big.
Net booner, probably.
Yep. And we had actually, before that soft side in the summer, we had a steel frame that we put in there. We was going to put a redneck on.
Yeah.
And so
we kind of repurposed it. An old blind was on it, but it was still good. It was 15-footer.
The frame was still good.
And you had a welder cut it off,
yep.
and it was
cut
10
that
foot.
stand down to size so it wouldn't be so high. and had it made to fit, and it was just waiting on redneck to go on it. So long story short, we put that soft side there. It takes me back to that morning where Samson come up out of the ditch. I didn't never think that that metal frame and that stand that was behind us would play such a vital role. Time we were there that morning, he walked up, and we had to turn the camera equipment around. I had to turn around. I had to get my bow, get it, everything. Nothing was ready.
Yeah, not a lot of pre-roll, just a few seconds there.
I mean, he just come right there, and there he was. And, you know, I hurry myself sometimes too much when I don't have to. I think I'm learning better as I'm getting older. I say I am, but I really don't think, I am. I think I just say that. We made a lot of noise getting everything turned around, getting ready on him. The deer knew we was there. They were standing there looking at us. And when I shot, he dropped. And not only did he drop, but right in his vitals, and Kyle filming, you could not see where I hit the deer. I didn't know if I hit the deer high, low.
Because of where that stand was.
Yeah, because of that piece of metal running down that frame. It blocked
of all the places for it to hit. And we thought back 100 times, should Kyle have called you off, or we all thought this out loud, but it wasn't.
Right decision,
it wasn't. Who knew that the arrow was going to hit right there?
I know.
And it was kind of not really high. I don't want to call it high.
But the deer dropped so much too. I mean, there was a lot of things. It was right at daylight.
It was front of the shoulder. It was front of the lungs. I mean, we looked at deer anatomy. It seems like we live on the deer anatomy, google.com, all year long, just always questioning hits and stuff. Even when you hit them good, you like to refer back to that. And we looked at that, and we said, we think you got at least a lung right there. You had to.
But we couldn't
shooting that big old rage,
where it hit, because we couldn't see, because that stand blocked the view.
And you shoot the 2-blade, huge cut, but a lot depends. What's that, 2.5 inches, 2 3/4, something? But it depends on what way those blades are turned.
Yeah.
Ideally, where you hit him there, we needed those blades to be turned left or right, and we don't know if they were turned up or down, left or right,
So
whatever.
Hard. It's hard to say you're that close, but I think it really was. So basically, after I shot, the arrow was sticking out of him some. It looked good. The hit looked good. He was running off. And so we sit there for a little bit, relook at the video. Man, we're high-fiving it. And it come together. Man.
And you're texting me, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You just killed a 180. And you had hunted a couple times, but you're like, I'm going to start concentrating on Samson. And the first morning, boom. First morning you went in after him.
Yeah, well, we'd been hunting.
Oh, the night before or something, but it may not have been that quick, but it seemed quick.
I have to look back and think back to every day now. But anyway, we watched him run off. It was already drizzling. They were calling for rain. I kept looking at the forecast, and they said within the next hour it's going to start raining. I could see it on the radar.
And let me tell you, rain is a common theme for this year. Everywhere we go, it's raining. Every single hunt, it's raining, and that makes blood trailing a bear.
Does. So 30 or 45 minutes left. I told Kyle, I said, I'm going to get down. I'm going to go look and see what kind of blood we got. Basically, we get down, we walk over there. He is bleeding. I mean, his blood just pouring out everywhere.
And you're not really texting me. I don't know if y'all found him or what.
So basically, for about the next 100 yards, it's just blood everywhere, all on the ground. Real good blood trail. Then he hit an opening, and I guess he picked up steam and run across that opening, because it took us about 2 hours to go with the next 200 yards or so. By that time, you had joined me. We went over there. He ran down in the woods, crossed the creek. He quit bleeding totally.
I remember we found that blood in that pasture flat.
So then we felt like we were pushing him.
Yeah, we'd been 400 or 500 yards. Didn't you think?
Yep, easily.
But it wasn't. It was a lot of blood at first, which made us feel good, and that makes you sometimes just kind of push on when really we probably should have not been pushing on. But had we not had that rain, we would have called off the search. But we felt like we had to. And sometimes they say, well, one lung, you can push them too. You don't want him to go bed down and get his energy up.
He never bedded down. That made me really nervous. So anyway, we pick it back up there. We lost the blood. We did not want to push him in the areas that we felt like he might go. It'd be hard to find. So we backed out totally and waited till the next day. And it rained. It did rain. But we didn't have any more blood to go on, and we didn't really want to push him past the area he was at. So we backed out of there. We went back the next day. We looked everywhere. We could not find nothing of him. Kyle and I went back at least another time or two and searched some areas. And for various reasons, we didn't want to go in here and push him. I mean, we had our logical reasons.
We thought at that point, everybody thought he was going to live. That we thought that if he was going to die, it's going to probably take an infection and take him a while. And he lived in only a couple hundred acres there.
Yeah,
total.
But there was big ditches and all.
Big ditches, wasn't a lot of timber, but and you had a lot of cameras trying to locate him then.
Well,
but after the shot, a whole lot of cameras.
Yeah, we had a camera, it seemed like, on every tree, and we were running them everywhere, every spot, every gap, anywhere we thought he might come out. We would go in there and put him on the bottom of the bean fields. If he got at the bean fields or we felt like he was in that ditch, maybe he'd come up close to the edge of it. We never got a picture of him after that.
And if he should have been alive, we felt like we had enough knowledge of his home core that we had, cameras that we should have guided him at. And every day, I think everybody's confidence that he was alive started fading.
Yeah.
But you kept hunting him. I mean, you were hunting, waiting on him.
I
got one tag left. This is the bucket's going on.
Yep, we hunted him diligently after that. We never saw him again. We never got a picture of him.
You didn't even really want to go back to Illinois on the 15th because you felt like you still had to finish business with Samson.
And I felt like that I would be able to kill him if he was still on his feet or moving. I thought maybe it might take him a week to get over it, and hopefully he'd recover. That didn't happen. He didn't show back up. I was depressed, to say the least, frustrated at myself, frustrated over the whole thing. I mean, you sit there and you hunt this deer, and then you finally get a shot at him, and it don't happen like you want it to happen, man. And it's just.
But it's truly a game of inches.
Up,
Yeah, it's a game of inches. I mean, you hear that a lot. I know that's a cliche, but 1 inch, 2 inches back, and you double on this deer, and he's dead. We're taking hero shots.
If it hadn't dropped this far, it wouldn't have been so high either.
Yeah,
There's so many things, that plays a factor in what we do, and you hear these people that some of them, they think they talk that they make the perfect shot every time, but it just don't happen, and it happened to me the year before last, and it's disheartening that it happened again, but I mean, it's the truth, and I mean, it happens that way, and it's just the way it is. You can't paint a better picture than what it was. So anyway, I kept hunting him. No sightings, no pictures, checking our cameras, just wearing stuff out. And you're like, man, what do you do? So by that time we thought he was dead. Basically, we
started to give up. At this point, we give up. We go to Illinois. We hunt. We kill 3 deer over there. Then we go to. Then it's Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Then we go to Kansas. We kill 2 deer there. Film Ben, shoot 1. Then we go
home.
Mississippi. Get back home. Fast forward, a month and a half, what is it, to late season.
27.
I shoot Tricky Ricky. You're hunting with Stan, your brother, the dude that got you into hunting. 4th time he's taken to draw a tag, or 4th time he's been to Iowa with a drawn tag. And y'all are hunting, and a deer steps out.
Yeah, no, we're hunting. I take him over there where I had that encounter with Samson, or close to there. We're sitting there. It's probably 28th, 29th of December.
Not the same cornfield, but a half mile away, maybe,
yeah,
where he summered at.
Yeah, but it was a place that he usually used late season last year. This is where his
deer was at. Where you supposedly saw him.
That's right. So we're sitting there, and a buck walks out, a shed buck. And I start looking at this deer, and he has a wound over his shoulder on the same side that I shot Samson. And honestly, we thought it was Samson. Even Kyle and I,
the exact same spot, And
right there,
and that farm is close to another farm that gets gun hunted a lot by the traditional driving methods, lead flying, slugs flying. So no telling.
Yep.
We thought Samson could have. We told those guys, hey, if you go in there and you see him, or you jump him up, or you see him dead, let us know.
So we're sitting there, we watch this deer, and immediately I say, my plan is this. As soon as we get stand a deer, I'm coming in here. I'm going to find those sheds off that deer. And
at this point, it didn't matter to run him out because you couldn't kill him anyhow. He didn't have no horns, or so we thought.
Yeah, and shotgun season basically was over. The deer didn't get as much pressure that time of the year. So Stan ended up shooting a buck in a different spot. And I get up on a Sunday morning, you know, and we're shooting does that week. I didn't want to get up and go shoot does that morning. I got up and I said, I'm going to go find these sheds.
Going to find Samson sheds.
I'm going to go find Samson sheds, hopefully. So I go over there and I'm tracking where I'm walking. I had walked just less than a mile down a creek at the bottom of the bean field, right below where we filmed that deer. And I looked in the creek, and there laid Samson.
Not the sheds, though.
Nope, not the shed, but there laid the deer.
Yeah.
And he had been dead a long time. You know, his body was rotting on the bottom. The coyotes had got him and ate everything up, but miraculously, his head was still intact.
And this was what day was this?
This was
the 3rd or something?
I'm thinking the 5th, but to the date, honestly, I think it was the 5th of January. Anyway,
yes, that's right. That's right.
So
let's check my notes.
I seen that, and it was amazing that, you know, here I had been.
So 2 months, exactly.
And had I not seen that deer that was wounded and the sheds missing, I never went down there to look for those sheds, which led me to find him. He was 75 yards from the bean field, and I went in there and cut and mowed some corn. And hopefully I'd get his picture. Remember that?
Yeah, he wasn't 100 yards from that Spartan camera. 100 yards.
And every time we'd go to that camera, he was laying right
And
there.
we moved that blind. We had a rhino blind on a elevated platform, 6 foot tall platform. We moved that thing 2 or 3 times this year within a couple hundred yards of him.
I think, honestly, what happened is, if I go back to when I shot him and we went in there that afternoon looking for him the next day, I think we probably pushed him back around into that other ditch. I always thought that, but I never did get a chance to go look,
I think
because
at
I
that
didn't wanna
point,
push the deer out.
At that point, once they didn't find him dead in shotgun season where we thought he ran, our neighbors didn't find him, I think we all knew he was dead at that point. I mean, how could he keep dodging the cameras? Unless he was holed up and sick and he shed. And we did have pictures of a deer that was similar to him. That's what's so crazy. You know, Samson was, 180-inch typical. We had like a 160-inch typical that was broke up, but he was so broke up, it kind of looked like him. His frame was the same, and I don't remember that deer from the summertime, so it played games with him. And we're looking for any excuse to think that he's alive. But when you text me, I just found him. I honestly thought it was a joke. I didn't go with you that day, but we'd been on several, I don't want to say goat ropes, but we'd been on several search and destroy missions for him at various times, depending on what section of that area we were going to look for.
It was almost like it was just meant to be for me. You know,
you to get in there and find him.
It's almost like I walked right to him, which I really didn't, but it was like I did. And then when I walked up on him, man, it was just it was a terrible, bad feeling knowing that I had wounded that deer and I wasn't able to recover him in that time. And the coyotes had ate him.
Yeah, but he wasn't terrible. It still showed where you could still see his cape. Obviously, you couldn't use his cape, but you could see where you shot. And
the wound never healed.
No.
I mean, he died. And the whole thing about that right there was we didn't know if that arrow of mine had went into chest cavity or it was a flesh wound. You know, because we felt like...
Well, you got enough penetration for sure.
Yeah,
but
not knowing if it went into the chest cavity. But I think that's what happened. It did.
We still didn't know exactly where. You can look at the arrow mark when they're going off in slow motion all you want, but you don't know exactly where it hit because the deer are moving or the deer's moving and all that stuff.
That's right. So I called you guys over there. You know, we done a recovery on him and we got him out, and we were very blessed that we didn't get, nothing that got to his rack, no squirrels or nothing like that ate on his rack and all. It was really all intact and everything was really good.
He was still good enough that you could actually use and that's my daughter crying in the background, but he was still good enough that I was like, we can take pictures of this deer. It may not be, our traditional hero pics, but you can take pictures of this deer. And I remember when you said this deer is, I said, how big is he? Because, in the summertime, he looked huge, but when we get over there to him, things start adding up, and we're like, this deer is not only a giant, but this deer is like world-class beams. He's world-class tine length. He's a 6x5 barely, and a ton of junk, a lot more junk than we had ever thought. And when you start getting junk like that on deer's bases, that adds up quick. But we don't necessarily do it for the score. We'd be lying if we said we didn't do it for the age, because we care a heck of a lot about the ages of these deer. But we didn't even score him for a couple of days, because it was kind of like, let's just enjoy him.
We really don't know how old he was, 7.5, 8
Hey, his teeth looked at least that,
old.
And we did, you did the right thing. You called the game ward and said, look, season's still in. I have been hunting this deer. I want to put my tag on this deer.
Still had my archery tag.
Still had it. He says, thank you for calling. The right thing to do is to put it on this. And so we wanted always. There's no gray area with us. We're black and white. We always do the right thing. Always strive to do the right thing, and that's what you did. He did say, had it been after season, you probably would have had to use a salvage tag, or you had to, and still even reported the deer. Now that being said, we felt like, looking back, based on how old he was, we're no CSI, but we guessed he'd been dead. He probably died shortly there after the shot. You obviously got a lung, but he was too decomposed to tell. But he's a giant deer, and it's kind of maybe not the ending you hope for, and it wasn't the ending I guess the deer deserved, but it was the ending, and we had an ending, and that's all you can ask, because what if gone but not forgotten? Maybe some guy picks him up, you never hear about it, or he sheds and goes and dies. There's so many things that could happen to a world-class deer like that, but for you to finally get your hands on him, now we just got to get a cape, and he's going to be on your wall forever.
Yeah, and it was actually on a part of our farm that really gets picked over shed season and stuff. I know that's not right. That's not fair that people come onto your property and take your sheds and all, but
it happens, yeah.
But it does happen, and thankfully, I was able to go over there and look and search and find him. And like you said, it's not the ending that I'd hoped for. Actually, when I seen that deer out there, that was looked like it had that wound spot on him that I thought was Samson.
Yeah.
I thought, man, I'm gonna get to hunt this deer again next year.
He's gonna be a freak, man. Because when a lot of times, that's what I thought. A lot of times when you hit deer and you don't find them and they live, they start growing, drop tines and all kind of crazy stuff. But you found him. We let it go a couple days. We had a great late season despite the warm weather. And, it's kind of things happen for a reason. We didn't get snow that year, but had we got this year, had we had a lot of snow that January, you might not have seen him, because he really stuck out down in the bottom of that ditch. Yeah. And I always say, you find dead deer in bottom of ditches. Coyotes drag them down there. They go down in the bottom when they're sick. They never get back out, whatever you want to call it.
Creeks.
And you're too humble to say this, but when you killed that deer, we gave him a couple days, and then I said, you know what, I'm just going to go up there and score him. I think y'all were cleaning up the barn, and I don't remember what was going on. Y'all were out doing something. I said, I'm going to score him, and I'm not going to say nothing about it, because I'm infatuated with scores of what big deer score, and, unfortunately, I have never killed a typical like that. But so I start scoring him. It starts, I'd guesstimate him. Usually I can get pretty close in the field, and I'd guessed him at like 183, 184 with measuring them with the hands. But that's just, I always say I can get within a couple inches. But on this one, it wasn't the case. He was high 80s, mid to high 80s. I don't have the score sheet with me, but typical. Then he had
27-inch beams.
27-inch beams. He's over 20 inches wide. Every point it seemed like it's 10 or 11 inches, and then it starts adding up, and he's what I came up with, rough score, me scoring, on my redneck score sheet, but 195 inches. So, you got this mid-80s, 180s 10-pointer, and then you throw in this junk, and it's like, oh my gosh, we got what we thought he was, a net booner. And my first thought is, dang, I might have should have hunted him a little harder when you suggested I need to go over there to him. But I didn't. But I'm glad you got him. You deserve him. It was a fitting end, though, to finally get him. But my stars, what a giant deer. The biggest deer we killed all year by far. Even bigger than T-Rex. Who would have thought that? And I didn't think he was 195 inches on the summer pictures.
He had a big frame, though.
He had
long beams.
But our deer max 22, 24-inch beams on the giants. So for this one to be 27 and a half, close to 28-inch beams on one of them, that's a whole new ball game. That's what once they start getting up that 27, 28-inch beams, that's world-class animals or world-class beams for sure. And so that's what he had, and just a giant. And we haven't really announced him much on social media because we wanted to explain it all, because you sent me, I said, write it out, and
It was 5 pages.
yeah, I said, write it out, and I'll put it on Instagram.
You know what
I said, well, I can't put all that on there, but it deserves it. It's not just like, hey, I shot this deer in November, and 2 months later I found him, and here he is. No, that's not how we remember a deer like this. We want to know, people want to know everything about him. So that's why, it's kind of one of the reasons we did a podcast, really, because we have so much more to tell about certain deer. What is the story behind this deer? And this is the story behind Samson. It's the 2-month version, shrunken down to 30, 45 minutes, but still, this is Samson, and it's a deer that deserved a proper eulogy, if you want. But just an awesome deer, and it was a great year looking back. So what was that was obviously a big deer. I mean, a big moment for you this year. But what was the highlight of your year? Do you have one?
Well, I guess it's kind of like your kids. When you have highlights, it depends on how many kids you have, and that's how many highlights I would have. But they would probably be, Jacqueline killing her first elk, and my grandkids killing their deer.
Yeah, you forget about those. Yeah, it happened early.
Because it's so easy to look at yourself and say, oh, I did this or I did that, and I neither one are like that. I just kind of feel like we're humble people. The good Lord bless us and give us opportunity to do stuff that we love to do, and to be able to help somebody else achieve what they're trying to do, to me, means more to me than just accomplishing something myself. So that would be my highlight. I think would be the grandkids, being able to take them hunting, spend that time with them able to harvest the deer, and just go from there.
Yeah. My highlight, it was weird, because my highlight, or what I think about was the most special moment of my year, would be not a deer I killed, but I wasn't even on the hunt, but I was on the cut recovery when my Uncle Stan, who had taken him 4 years to draw, and he'd been coming in shotgun season, early shotgun, and that's 5 days. You can hit the wind wrong, you can hit the weather wrong, it can be tough. So we said, this year you need to come in late muzz, and he came in late muzz, and about the 4th or 5th day he got it done. And just a giant of 8-pointer, 166-inch 8-pointer. I guess that was, if not the biggest 8-pointer ever that we've ever been a part of, it was the second biggest one, because my sister killed one really close to that size in that same field about 10 years ago. But a giant deer, and you could tell it meant so much to him. That deer meant more to him than any animal that anybody else we were a part of killed all year. And it's been a couple of weeks since he's killed that deer, and he's
still talking about
he's still got pictures that when I sent him to Walmart, I sent him some pictures to Walmart. He went and picked them up, because he's got a smartphone, but he's not one to start whipping out his Android and showing people pics. And so I've had so many people message me to say, hey, I seen Stan, man, he's super pumped with that deer. And any deer he killed would have been big, but he passed a lot of good deer.
Over the 4 years, he really
was going to let him shoot what you thought was a 4-year-old, non-typical, but he was limping real bad, and you was worried he had hoof rot. And he was a 150-inch deer, but Stan, he passed. And he's like, what are you doing, man? You haven't killed one. Come on, bud, shoot one. We're wanting you to kill one. But that was one of the funnest weeks of our year, playing cornhole. He's my cornhole partner. So, looking back, that was probably the highlight for me. A favorite, one of the things I like to say is, what was your favorite sit of the year? Because, yes, it may have been when you killed a deer, but for me, my favorite sit of the year is when I didn't kill a deer. It was when I seen Tricky Ricky. When I was hunting Tricky Ricky, I got a Spartan pic of him late one night, and it looked like he busted off his drop tine. And Tricky Ricky's a cool deer, 150-inch 10-pointer, but he's a pretty normal Midwest deer without the drop tine. But you add in the drop tine, he is a very cool-looking deer. And I probably still would have shot him without the drop tine, because he was 8.5. But when I seen him that night, and luckily the camera was rolling, I was like, oh my word, He still got his drop tine. I was like a little kid on Christmas morning.
That was the night he was fighting with that other deer, wasn't it?
No, it was before that. I think it was.
Y'all got a lot of cool footage of him.
Yeah, and finally, I'm just glad we finally killed him. Really, to be honest with you, looking back and thinking about how much he kicked my fanny one way and up and down that what we call the strips in that clover field. But that was my favorite sit of the year. But I didn't kill him. But you got one that sticks out, like just one sit that you could say, man, that was fun that night.
Yeah, I would say it was early October, maybe my first afternoon that we sit. We were sitting over a bean field, and we had some biologic turnips to the east of us and some radishes right in front of us. And we probably had about 25 deer right there early season. All the bucks was showing their age in front of the does, and just all of them showing out in scrapes. And we probably saw 30 deer that night, and probably half of them was bucks, and 2 or 3 of them was mature. That was exciting. We didn't kill none, but it was a great sit.
You remember what the conditions were that night?
You know, it was that early October. It was that front come through right after we got back from elk hunting.
Was the sun shining?
I really don't remember.
Oh, man, I love hunting. You know, I'm all about them bluebird days. And we don't have many days this fall where we had pretty high-pressure days. But if you got one of them, you treasured it. You felt lucky to be alive, lucky to be in a stand. And we usually seen some pretty good deer there.
Yep.
But that's kind of a highlight. We kind of rushed through, I guess, the last portion of our year because we really wanted to tell the story of Samson to you guys and really be able to get the full in detail, you know, kind of bird's eye view of this deer we call Samson and the quick, you know, like I say, 2-month story of him. But he was an awesome deer. It was an awesome year. But before we sign off, you know, once I get this podcast will eventually kind of, I don't want to say run out of things to talk about, but we'll run out of things to talk about that we know a lot about. So we're going to have to pull some guests in, some people a lot smarter than us, and that's not hard to find, but smarter than us at various topics, you know, whether it be food plot stuff, whether it be minerals, whether it be farming, deer tracking, whatever it is. But I've done decided they're all, as soon as they come on, I got an ice-breaking question that is just going to start us off with a bang. And I'm about to ask it to you, and I didn't give you any time to prepare, but what is your favorite deer stand snack?
My favorite deer stand snack, you mean like this past year or the years prior?
Let's go all time.
Okay.
If you need to do top 3, I'm cool with that.
Time. All right, I'll give you top 3.
Because, I mean,
my top 3
I can see you struggling.
I love those little Debbie snack apple pies.
Yeah.
Those are really great, but I really
Is that
like
Little Debbie brand, or what brand is that?
I think it is, yeah, but I like them warm, and it's kind of hard to do unless you got a heater, so they're my great late season snack. The other one.
Oh, you breaking this down into like seasons now?
Well, I mean, you asked.
Okay.
Okay, so then I got, of course, it'd be a toss-up between a oatmeal cream pie.
OCP.
Yeah, I mean, I love those things. And Oreos. I mean, it's hard to beat, you know, Oreo cookies. But it would be an oatmeal cream pie, I guess, or the little cinnamon pecan swirls, Little Debbie's.
Oh, pecan swirls, yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mine is somewhere in there. It's hard for me to name one. I feel like if I don't say OCP, oatmeal cream pies, that I'm cheating on Little Debbie, because that's what everybody accuses me of being my favorite deer stand snack. But I like to change it up. You know, you eat the same thing 3 or 4 days in a row and eat as many snacks as we do. You can't eat the same thing every day.
Nutty bars are good too.
Yeah, I'm not a Nutty Bar fan. But Kyle is. My gosh, every time I look at him, he's eating one of them things.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, as soon as Little Debbie goes public, I'm buying stock.
I hear you.
But thank you guys for listening. That is 2018-19 deer season recapped in about 1 hour. So thank all you guys for listening. And if you get a chance, leave us a comment, subscribe. We do one of these things every few days is the plan. So when you subscribe, you'll get to know exactly when we upload one, and share it with your buddies, let everybody know about it. We're going to try to at least tell you about what we enjoy and a little bit about ourselves, a little more in depth of everything we do here on the Lindsey Way Podcast. And signing off until next time, y'all be good.